Good evening, Little Masters, and welcome to episode 153 of the Prancing Pony Podcast, where going back is to admit defeat.
Not to mention facing worse defeat to come. Folks, go ahead and pull up a bench in the common room, and we'll be right there. I'm Sean Marchese, the real-life Lord of the Mark, and I'm here with the Man of the West, who would probably like the long way through Longstrand and Lebanon, Alan Sisto.
Well, depending on the company, I always like a good road trip, Sean.
Yeah, for me, the key ingredient to a good road trip is the playlist, not the company. But that's a topic that would have us digressing all night, I think.
Oh, yeah. We'd be done.
Yeah. So why don't we skip right past that and get right into This Week in Tolkien History.
All right.
Now, if you're listening to this on the day this episode drops, today is February 2nd, 2020. Happy belated birthday to me. And...
Are you officially old yet, Sean?
I may not look it, but I'm beginning to feel it.
Are you feeling a bit stretched?
Yeah.
A bit thin, as it were?
Yeah. Or as Indiana Jones said, it's not the years, it's the mileage.
Yes. Yeah. Or as Danny Glover said, oh, wait, never mind.
No. We'll leave that one right there.
Yes, we will. All right.
This is a family podcast. But
indeed, it is, sir.
No, we've got a lot of Tolkien history to celebrate this week, so why don't we go ahead and get started?
Good idea.
On this date, February 2nd, in 1939, Tolkien wrote letter number 35 to Charles A. Firth at Allen and Unwin. He was reporting that the new story, that we now know as Lord of the Rings, was over 300 manuscript pages by the time it reached chapter 12, and would require, quote, 200 at least to finish the story that has developed. Oh, that's adorable, Professor. Lovely little understatement.
Yes,
now, that's also the letter in which he mentioned to Firth that the new book was not a children's story.
Again?
He said,
we should have our listeners add that topic to the drinking game.
We really should, actually. It's come up like every episode
or the bingo
season,
card. Yeah, it really has, hasn't
seriously.
it?
Yeah, but he mentioned to Firth that the new book wasn't a children's story. He said, I think The Lord of the Rings is, in itself, a good deal better than The Hobbit, but it may not prove a very fit sequel. It is more grown up, but the audience for which The Hobbit was written has done that also. The readers, young and old, who clamored for more about the necromancer are to blame, for the necromancer is not child's play.
So it's your fault, basically, right, Sean? Is that what he's saying?
Yeah, it's my fault for wanting more about Sauron.
There you go.
Not that I was around to ask him for it, or to clamor for it, as he said.
But it was your type, the horror fans, the scary stuff.
I see, yes, it's people like me, right? It's you people. Yeah.
You people. All right.
Yep.
Well, that was February 2nd, 1939, but on February 4th, a couple years earlier, 1937, Tolkien's poem The Dragon's Visit was published in the Oxford Magazine. It was one of his series of Tales and Songs of Bimble Bay, written probably sometime around 1928, but revised and published 9 years later. Douglas Anderson states in a margin note in The Annotated Hobbit that Tolkien revised the poem again in 1961 with the intention of including it in The Adventures of Tom Bombadil. But Tolkien eventually abandoned the idea of including it there because he, quote, found it deficient, and because he found it impossible to remodel and bring it into the world of The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings. But if you want to read it, don't fret. Anderson has included the poem in its entirety in the pages of The Annotated Hobbit. And another of our favorite Hobbit scholars, John Ratliff, called The Dragon's Visit one of Tolkien's best poems in a 2009 issue of Mythlore.
Very cool. Well, moving on February 5th, 1950, Tolkien wrote letter number 123. It's also known as the other letter to Milton Waldman. Really, one of the other letters. There are a few.
True. There are a few, yeah.
Now, remember that in addition to being the recipient of the greatest letter ever written in the English language, which of course is 131.
That is awesome, yeah.
Milton Waldman was an editor at Collins Publishing House, and Tolkien was considering jumping ship from Allen and Unwin and going to Collins so that he could get the Silmarillion published alongside The Lord of the Rings.
Right.
Well, letter 123 is the surviving draft of the letter that Tolkien wrote to Waldman, in which he stated that he had, and we talked about this quote, I think, beginning of last season, no legal obligation to Allen and Unwin, and that was because he had already given them his next book, which was Farmer Giles of Ham, which is what the contract had stipulated. But he said, I have friendly personal relations with Stanley, whom all the same I do not much like, and with his second son Rayner, whom I do like very much.
Yeah.
And moving on later in the letter, he says, if this constitutes a moral obligation, then I have one.
Oh my goodness.
Now,
can you imagine being Stanley Unwin at that point?
I know.
I have friendly personal relations with Tolkien, but he doesn't much like me.
I know. Can you imagine when this letter came out later,
Yeah.
What I don't know if Stanley Unwin was.
Well, Stanley Unwin, I don't think would have been alive after.
But Rayner was
published. Yeah, he was.
Yeah, but Rayner certainly was. Can you imagine?
Oh man, no.
Well, anyway, this whole episode ended up leading to Tolkien's epic attempt to get Allen and Unwin to drop him. That's when he said that the Lord of the Rings escaped from my control, and he said, I've produced a monster and stuff like that. But of course, in the end, Collins delayed so much that Tolkien went back to Allen and Unwin and let them publish The Lord of the Rings.
Which, can you imagine if you're Allen and Unwin and Tolkien leaves with The Lord of the Rings and the Silmarillion, and you're like, well, at least he gave us Farmer Giles. What do we sell? 1,200 copies? I mean, No.
Yeah, that's right.
I like Farmer Giles, don't get me wrong, but it's no Lord of the Rings in terms of
it's a fun
longevity.
It's a very fun story. Well, I remember there actually was a letter exchange about that too. I think I think Unwin had sent something to Tolkien saying, I don't have this in front of me, but he had said something to the effect of, Farmer Giles hasn't sold very much, and Tolkien said, well, I don't remember seeing any advertisements for it.
That's right, I do remember that. We'll have to put that in the P5 for sure.
We'll have to look for that.
Podcast Patreon postscript, yeah. That's awesome. Well, continuing the theme of February 5th, in 1956 on that day, Dan Wickenden of the New York Herald Tribune published a review of The Lord of the Rings, specifically the last volume of it, The Return of the King, under the title, I can't help but laugh when I read this, Notable Allegorical Trilogy Comes to a Triumphant End.
Yeah, well, I haven't read that review, but I can't help thinking about the words of old Luke Skywalker in The Last Jedi. Every word of what you just said is wrong.
That's about right. I mean, I guess it is notable at least, right? I mean, there is that.
It is that. That's true. Yeah. That's true.
And of course, Wickenden does seem to have liked the book, so I guess we can forgive him.
I guess we can. But finally, on February 6th, 1972, J.R.R. Tolkien wrote a letter to Vera Chapman of the Tolkien Society.
Oh, yes, indeed he did. Now, folks may not realize this, but Vera Chapman, whose nickname was Belladonna Took, was the founder of the Tolkien Society all the way back in 1969.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on January 3rd, 1972, which was Tolkien's 80th birthday, the Tolkien Society sent the professor a telegram congratulating him and saying, another 50 years to beat the old Took. They also published a happy birthday message in the Times and sent the professor a green china tobacco jar full of pipeweed. Tolkien secretary Joy Hill phoned Chapman to tell her, of all the tributes he received, this was the one that gave the greatest pleasure.
That's right. Yep.
Warms my heart every time.
I know. I love that. And just over a month later, Tolkien actually wrote to Chapman personally to say, may I thank you and the Tolkien Society for your good wishes and kind gift on my 80th birthday. And a few more words than that, too.
Sure.
Now, that letter is not published in Carpenter's collection, but it is published in issue number 5 of Malorn, the Tolkien Society's annual journal.
Which you have access to if you're a member of the Tolkien Society, along with all the rest of the Malorns and Amonhens that go all the way back to the beginning. It's pretty amazing to read those things.
Just one other reason to join. Yep.
Absolutely. Now, a few months later, Chapman met Tolkien in person, which is when she asked him to be the honorary president of the Tolkien Society. He said, certainly, and he has been the president of the Society ever since, which I guess that's yet another reason to join, folks. But now let's get
He is still technically the president of the Society, yeah.
Yes, he is. So, you might want to consider joining. It's a great resource. But for now, let's get back to the book that Tolkien wrote, after all, because we're all fans of the books here at the Prancing Pony Podcast.
Yes, we are. And of course, we bring you other Tolkien stuff from time to time. But you know that at heart, Alan and I are fans of Tolkien's books and books about Tolkien. That's our passion.
Mm-hmm. And as you know, we read a lot of books in preparation for the show every week. Now, if you'd like to get your hands on a book that we've mentioned, you're going to want to check out the official library page on our website, theprancingponypodcast.com. There we have links to every book we've mentioned on the show.
And there's a lot of other stuff on our website, too. There's show notes and book links specific to each episode. We've got some outtakes up there, some of which are funnier than others. We've got some Prancing Pony ponderings, some of which are more insightful than others. We've got a few other little extras.
Yeah.
You'll also find a link to our new online storefront at teespring.com/stores/PPP. And there you can find shirts, mugs, stickers, and lots of other great PPP gear. So please go check that out.
Absolutely. And now let's get headed towards the mines of Moria.
Well, if we have to.
Yeah. Well, yeah. It's not exactly on everybody's bucket list.
No.
Where are you going to go this summer? Oh, I'm going to go to New Zealand. What about you? I'm going to Paris. What about you? I'm going to the mines of Moria.
Like, oh, all right.
Oh,
That's a legit Tolkien fan right there.
Yeah, it is. That's right.
You know, everybody goes to New Zealand and checks out like the sets and everything like
right.
that. Everybody goes to, you know, Birmingham or Oxford.
Nobody spends a week in the caves.
Right.
No, that's for the hardcore, man.
And if they do get in, do they ever get through?
It's like the Roach Motel.
Yeah. Or the Hotel California.
Oh, yeah. You can check out anytime you like, but yeah.
You can never leave.
That's right.
Anyway, we digress.
Because the beginning is such a good place to start, that's where we're going to start today.
Do it.
And I'm going to go ahead and read the first little bit. It was evening, and the gray light was again waning fast when they halted for the night. They were very weary. The mountains were veiled in deepening dusk, and the wind was cold. Gandalf spared them one more mouthful each of the Miravor of Rivendell. When they had eaten some food, he called a council. "We cannot, of course, go on again tonight," he said. "The attack on the Redhorn Gate has tired us out, and we must rest here for a while." "And then where are we to go?" asked Frodo. "We still have our journey and our errand before us," answered Gandalf. "We have no choice but to go on, or to return to Rivendell." Pippin's face brightened visibly at the mere mention of return to Rivendell. Merry and Sam looked up hopefully, but Aragorn and Boromir made no sign. Frodo looked troubled. "I wish I was back there," he said. "But how can I return without shame, unless there is indeed no other way and we are already defeated?" "You're right, Frodo," said Gandalf. "To go back is to admit defeat, and face worse defeat to come. If we go back now, then the ring must remain there. We shall not be able to set out again. Then, sooner or later, Rivendell will be besieged, and after a brief and bitter time, it will be destroyed. The ring-wraiths are deadly enemies, but they are only shadows yet of the power and terror they would possess if the ruling ring was on their master's hand again." I guess that's just to reiterate the importance of their mission.
That'll wake you up in the morning.
Yeah, yes, it will.
I guess.
Yeah. This is just another way of saying, we got to do this, guys.
Yeah.
So.
I love that. And we'll get to that in a minute. I guess we want to start by going back to the very beginning, don't we?
Yeah.
After the attack on the Redhorn Gate.
Boy, that's
not just, defeat by Caradhras, but the attack.
Yeah, it was an attack.
That's very telling.
They attacked the gate and they were defeated. They were turned back.
Oh, no, you think that's them attacking the gate? I took that as after we were attacked on the Redhorn Gate.
Oh, I was thinking their attack on the gate, like you attack them.
Right.
Huh.
Yeah, no, I see where you're going. I wonder what the intention of that is. Because I like the idea that they were attacked, because that makes it very clear that there was a presence, there was an entity that was keeping them from crossing.
Oh.
Although attack on the Redhorn Gate, now that you say it, does kind of sound like they're attacking our attack on the gate.
Yeah.
That's an interesting ambiguity.
To think that through a little bit more.
It is interesting, though. I don't know that there's anything that can really be, discerned about exactly what this means.
No, I don't think so.
I think the fact that it's called an attack, I think, is really significant. It's not just a crossing; it was an attack.
Absolutely. Even if it's their attack, or if, like you might think, it's an attack where they were attacked. Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But either way, Gandalf calls a council. Because we always have to have a council. We had the Council of Elrond, then we had a little Council of Hobbits that Gandalf crashed.
Hopefully this one is over more quickly than the Council of Elrond.
Oh, it's going to be over very quickly, actually, as we find out.
Hours and hours.
Yeah, this one they won't have hours and hours. No, they won't. Their immediate need, of course, is rest. So he points that out. Look, we're going to have to rest because we are totally wiped after that incident at the gate.
Mm-hmm.
But what do? We either go on or go back. Those are always our choices, right? Go forward or go back.
And the reactions to the idea of going back are really interesting here. I mean, you see like Pippin and Merry and Sam, they all are, hopeful.
Pippin especially. He's
Pippin's
even more.
Face brightens.
Right.
They actually think like, oh, yeah, that would be great. Let's do that.
Yeah, it's only been a little over 2 weeks. That's okay. I'm going back.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be great if that were actually an option? Which, of course, it's not.
No, it's not.
But, they're hobbits. We expect them to think, oh, yeah, this is too much. We should go back. Aragorn and Boromir, not surprisingly, being men who have, they've traveled, they've fought.
Yeah.
They know better.
Yeah. They know who the enemy is. They know that this is not a quest that they can just give up.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Frodo, though, alone of the hobbits, is wise enough to recognize that this would be to admit defeat. Yeah. And Gandalf explains exactly why that is.
Yes, he does. He makes some very good points that, look, we go back now. The enemy knows where we are. the Carabine, the attack on the mountain, everything points to they know where we are. And the only reason we're not dead is the ring wraiths aren't mounted again yet. Otherwise, we'd have been under attack by the wraiths, so by the Nazgul. So if we go back, we won't be able to leave again.
Right.
And eventually Rivendell will be defeated, even if it's the last or next to last place to be overwhelmed by the forces of Sauron.
Mm-hmm.
And then you think things are bad now.
Yeah. There's a little bit of that Beowulf, that circle of light. That
we'll see that more.
If they don't act now, Rivendell will become that.
Yes, it will.
Oh, we'll see that very literally later in this chapter
again. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and have you pick up right after that, after this charming bit of ultimate defeat, where Gandalf finally talks about how they could go forward.
More happy news from the
wizard.
There is a way that we may attempt, said Gandalf. I thought from the beginning, when first I considered this journey, that we should try it. But it is not a pleasant way, and I have not spoken of it to the company before. Aragorn was against it, until the pass over the mountains had at least been tried.
If it is a worse road than the Redhorn Gate, then it must be evil indeed, said Merry. But you had better tell us about it, and let us know the worst at once.
The road that I speak of leads to the mines of Moria, said Gandalf.
Only Gimli lifted up his head. A smoldering fire was in his eyes. On all the others, a dread fell at the mention of that name. Even to the hobbits, it was a legend of vague fear. The road may lead to Moria, but how can we hope that it will lead through Moria? Said Aragorn darkly.
Wow. Aragorn's rightly pessimistic, really.
Yeah. Well, and we see a little bit later what exactly he's afraid of.
Yeah.
In Moria.
Well, we'll see it a couple times. We'll see some, what's the word I'm looking for? Almost a
foresight?
Yeah, that's the word. Thank you.
A little bit of a premonition.
That's the word I was actually looking for. But yeah, foresight is close enough.
Yeah.
No doubt.
We'll get to that soon. And this takes us back to the conversation we had a couple of episodes ago, which I think is really good to remember for those of us who have seen the movies a few times.
Mm-hmm.
Gandalf is the one who really pushes for the pass through Moria.
Yeah, he thinks that's the way they're going to have to go from the beginning.
Has been against it.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Aragorn dead set against it, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
I like Merry's somewhat naive response here when Gandalf says, "Oh, there's this terrible way that we're going to have to go." Merry's like, get it over with, spit it out, will you?
Yeah, he's kind of all business here.
He really is.
He
is though the practical one, isn't he? I mean, have we noticed that before?
He is. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
quit beating around the bush.
Mm-hmm.
And so Gandalf says this. This word Moria, it's through Moria.
Yeah,
and Gimli, this reaction that he has, this smoldering fire.
Yeah.
We'll see this a little bit later. Exactly what this is. I mean, this really is. He has an eagerness to go there, doesn't he?
Yes, he does.
But I think he's a little unsure. He doesn't know what's there now.
No.
They haven't heard from the dwarves that went there.
And that's
they don't
been
know
years
exactly
at this
what's
point,
happening.
right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But he's definitely eager to go.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I like the fact that even the hobbits know that this is a scary name.
Yeah.
That they may not know the whole story. It's a legend of vague fear.
Wow. That's something. Because they don't know it. They don't have... The greater legends of Middle-earth have not all made their way into Hobbit lore.
Right.
But probably the dwarves traveling through to the Blue Mountains, I would imagine, is how they have heard of Moria.
Could be.
Because they have a lot of social interaction with the dwarves.
Yeah, dwarves do pass through there. And it's a place that I think is important enough to be talked about. It's a place that people, you would have heard some news about, at least
relatively recent history.
And that's where, Michael Drout's epistemic regime is really interesting, isn't it? Because when even the hobbits know something, but they only know vaguely, that tells you that it is something that, word has traveled about.
Yeah.
News has gotten out there.
It's a little bit of a red flag here. It's like, hey, if the hobbits know this is a scary place, then you all as the reader who don't know anything should also think of this as a very scary place.
That's a really good point, because for the reader, we don't, this name means nothing to us.
Right. Moria. What's Moria? Right.
But because the hobbits know this, that's sort of our flag to know that this is a serious thing.
Moria.
Oh. Man, I'm groaning at your pun now.
I'm sorry.
It's usually the other way around.
That was terrible.
That was. But let's talk a little bit about Aragorn's reaction, which I did read, and then Boromir's, which I didn't. But it's in the next,
his is
next
interesting.
paragraph. Aragorn, hey, we may get in, but how do we know we're going to get out?
Right.
He's, like you said, he's pessimistic, and
he knows it's a long and difficult road, and he knows it from personal experience, which we'll hear, well, virtually nothing about, but we will at least know that he has the experience.
Well, we'll at least know later that he has been through there.
Yeah, to some extent.
And Boromir, no personal experience.
No.
But it's a name of ill omen.
The knowledge of his people, which he's, relies on an awful lot, right?
And of course, he recommends what you would expect him to recommend. Like, hey, guys, let's try the Gap of Rohan. I just passed through the Gap of Rohan on my way to Rivendell. Why don't we do that? Or why don't we, go this long way around, which takes us closer to my country? I mean, it makes sense that he would want to get
home.
There you go.
Take a little super tramp for you. Yeah, absolutely.
A little super tramp. Yeah.
Yeah, in Third Age 3040, when they toured in Longstrand and Lebanon.
Supertramp did?
Yeah, absolutely. I saw him in Lebanon, man. Yep. It's a great show. All right.
The crowd went nuts for Bloody Well Right, man.
Oh, yes, they did. That's brilliant, sir. Absolutely brilliant. I do want to point out, though, that this idea that, Gandalf says after this, hey, man, that would take us a year to get there. I just want to point out, Gandalf's exaggerating things a little bit. Hammond and Skull point out that the journey would be about triple the distance of Frodo's journey. So let's do some math here, right? Frodo's journey takes 3 months, December 25th to March 25th. But that includes a full month layover in Lothlorien. So really, he does it in 60 days. So if this distance through Longstrand and Lebanon coming around the backside there, if that's 3 times the distance, then it's going to be more like a 6-month journey, not a year. But either way, it's a really long trip. I just wanted to point out.
Still a good point. I mean, 6 months is still more than they have, for sure.
Well, yeah, of course it is. I mean, they don't know that, but Gandalf's point is there is some urgency here, and we can't just take the scenic route.
Right.
And, of course, he absolutely shoots down the idea of the Gap of Rohan, which, I mean, we shot that down in the Council of Elrond.
Weren't you listening when I told you guys about Saruman's betrayal?
Seriously,
and that would
you
take
just
us
totally checked out when I told you about that. You just totally ignored me. Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. No, we can't keep the ring there, and can't take the ring there, I should say, and there's no way we're going to go to the Gap of Rohan, so that's not an option.
And I think the last sentence of what he says, and I know we're going to get to your reading in just a moment here, but this last sentence of what he says, the danger will increase with every league that we go south under the naked sky.
Boy, it will, won't it?
Wow. That is an ominous sentence.
It is.
The closer we get to the end of our road, the danger is going to increase.
Yeah, there'll be more and more peril.
This idea of the naked sky, there will be nothing.
And it's especially important under the naked sky, because that leads us into what he says in the next paragraph when I pick up the reading. The idea that, well, let's not be under the naked sky for a little bit, shall we?
Right.
Let's
How can we get out of sight? How can we lay low?
Yeah, get under the radar here. And if we can't get under the radar, get under the mountain. And that's where I'm going to go ahead and pick up. Since our open attempt on the mountain pass, our plight has become more desperate, I fear. I see now little hope if we do not soon vanish from sight for a while and cover our trail. Therefore, I advise that we should go neither over the mountains nor round them, but under them. That is a road, at any rate, that the enemy will least expect us to take. We do not know what he expects, said Boromir. He may watch all roads, likely and unlikely. In that case, to enter Moria would be to walk into a trap. Hardly better than knocking at the gates of the Dark Tower itself. The name of Moria is black. You speak of what you do not know when you liken Moria to the stronghold of Sauron, answered Gandalf. I alone of you have ever been in the dungeons of the Dark Lord, and only in his older and lesser dwelling in Dol Guldur. Those who pass the gates of Barad-dûr do not return. But I would not lead you into Moria if there were no hope of coming out again. If there are orcs there, it may prove ill for us, that is true. But most of the orcs of the Misty Mountains were scattered or destroyed in the Battle of 5 Armies. The Eagles report that orcs are gathering again from afar, but there is a hope that Moria is still free. There is even a chance that dwarves are there, and that in some deep hall of his fathers, Balin, son of Fundin, may be found. However it may prove, one must tread the path that need chooses. And boy, is that last sentence a doozy. I really want to get to that because that's another one of our big recurring themes. But let's go back to the beginning of this passage. Gandalf talking about, like we said, we gotta disappear.
We tried this under the naked sky. Now we gotta disappear. We gotta lay low.
Yeah, we gotta go under the mountains.
And fortunately, that just happens to be the last thing that the enemy will expect. So
Yeah.
It's got that going for it.
It does. And, as we know, they do a lot of things that are the last thing the enemy would expect. The whole idea of destroying the ring in the first place.
Right. That's true. The element of surprise.
Oh, goodness. Oh, that was good stuff, Sean. Totally drowns out the point I was going to make, which is that Boromir here channels his inner Admiral Akbar, that entering Moria is a trap.
No,
it's a trap. It's a trap.
Poor Akbar.
I know.
Poor Boromir.
Well, this is the way it is.
Yeah. While we're on the topic of Boromir, I want to point out that when he says the name of Moria is black, the word nerd in me wants to say that that's literally true.
Yes, it is.
The name Moria actually means black chasm.
Yes, it does.
It's got that root mor in it, which means black.
Mm-hmm.
So,
like Mordor,
the name of Moria is actually black. But Gandalf makes a very good point about, look, it's not like knocking at the gates of the Dark Tower itself. Let's not exaggerate, dude.
Exactly.
It's and look,
says the guy who just exaggerated about the long way home. But yeah,
well, there is that.
I know I just turned a 6-month journey into a year journey, but that's nothing like this.
But don't exaggerate about this.
That's right.
I'm Gandalf, and I say you do not exaggerate about this.
Because I've been to the dungeons of Dol Guldur.
Well, that's just it. Look, you don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you have no experience.
I've been in Sauron's dungeons, and even I have never been in Barad-dûr. So yeah, we wouldn't do this unless we absolutely had to.
Right, and we wouldn't do it if there was no chance of getting through. That's the point. I'm not going to take you someplace where I know you're going to die.
Right.
Yeah, if there are orcs there, sure, we might die. But really, all the orcs got wiped out 60 years ago in the Battle of Five Armies, and we all know that the orcs take a really long time to repopulate. They take forever.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to take a long time for them to refill enough, room in the caves with orcs.
Yeah, they're right.
I know,
sure.
Seriously. Apparently not. Apparently they got busy because there's
rabbits.
Plenty of them.
They're rabbits.
Very, very ugly rabbits.
And that's not something anybody wants to think about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very ugly thoughts in my head right now that I'm just going to leave right there.
I don't even want to know that you have those thoughts, Sean. That troubles me deeply.
I don't want to have those thoughts, Alan, but you've put them there. And for that.
Oh, do not blame me, sir. Do not blame me for that. You are the disgusting man who had those thoughts, not me.
I don't know. We're going to move right past orc repopulation.
Yes, we will.
And we're going to talk about treading the path.
I think it was just migration. I think it was just relocation. They moved from the Iron Mountains and they moved from other areas of the Misty Mountains to come to Moria.
Yeah, they all moved there because they knew there's a lot of repopulation going on there.
You had to see. I was trying to give you the rope by which you could climb.
You're trying to get me out.
And you're in a pit, and I said, "Here you go, Sean. Here's a rope. Climb up out of the pit." You said, "Thank you very much."
I'm like, "Thank you for that." No, thank you. I'm going to sink even deeper.
That's right. Absolutely right. Sean, man. What am I going to do with you, man? All right. So
the path that need chooses. You said you wanted to talk about this.
Exactly.
And I wish we had just gone straight to it.
I kind of wish we had too, actually. But apparently fate chose another path for us.
Yeah.
And we had to walk it.
And we had to tread it.
You had to tread it, and I had to watch. Anyway, I love this line. One must tread the path that need chooses. This is another fate or free will. Yes, both. Fate chooses the path, but a person still has to tread the path. Man, this is good stuff.
Yeah, it is. It is.
And you have apparently nothing more to say on that.
I have nothing else to say about it because you said it. It's true.
Yeah, no, you're right. There's not a lot to say other than that. Yeah, this is another fate free will.
On a macro cosmological level, it's brilliant because, as you say, it is fate and free will. Yes, it's both. Mm-hmm. On a kind of a micro level, it's just good practical advice. One must tread the path that need chooses. Look, if this is the way you've got to go,
then this is the way you got to go. Right.
This is the way you've got to go. It's
you may choose option A, or option A. Which will you choose? I mean,
and if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice.
Oh, how did I hear that one coming? A little free will from Rush. You know that's going to come every time we have this topic.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, I think it can be read on both of those levels. The sort of the big cosmological fate free will level, and also just the
The very practical.
Just the practical level.
Yeah.
This is what we got to do, man. Sorry. I mean, this is what we've got.
Absolutely. So, but that is where I'm going to have you pick up, is when Gimli joins in with his reaction and take it from there, okay?
Okay.
I will tread the path with you, Gandalf,
said Gimli.
I will go and look on the halls of Durin, whatever may wait there, if you can find the doors that are shut. Good, Gimli, said Gandalf. You encourage me. We will seek the hidden doors together, and we will come through. In the ruins of the dwarves, a dwarf's head will be less easy to bewilder than elves or men or hobbits. Yet it will not be the first time that I have been to Moria. I sought there long for Thrain son of Thror after he was lost. I passed through, and I came out again alive.
I, too, once passed the Dimril Gate, said Aragorn quietly. But though I also came out again, the memory is very evil. I do not wish to enter Moria a second time. And I don't wish to enter it even once, said Pippin.
Nor me,
muttered Sam.
Of course not, said Gandalf. Who would? But the question is, who will follow me if I lead you there? I will, said Gimli eagerly.
I will, said Aragorn heavily. You followed my lead almost to disaster in the snow, and have said no word of blame. I will follow your lead now, if this last warning does not move you. It is not of the ring, nor of us others that I am thinking now, but of you, Gandalf. And I say to you, if you pass the doors of Moria, beware.
Wow. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about this premonition, and
definitely
multiple times. We'll talk about it a little bit now. We'll talk about it later after, well, spoilers, Gandalf trips and falls.
If only there had been someone with some wings there to catch him and fly him out of the chasm.
Exactly. I agree. Somebody who also was falling and needed to use his wings to save himself.
Right. Yeah.
Anyway, Gimli's reaction.
Yeah.
He's ready. I'm
with you.
There.
I will go.
Even though I don't know what's waiting.
There,
yeah, exactly. Even though I don't know.
With a little bit of the practical at the end there, if you can find the doors. There's going to be that challenge.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I like that. And that's good that he wants to go because, as Gandalf says, even though Gimli hasn't been there, he's a dwarf, and his, he'll be less confused by dwarvish passages.
Well, he has infravision. He natively has that. So.
There is that.
Little second edition.
Not like Gandalf doesn't have, a light source.
Well, that's true. But you don't always want to have a light source. Walking around with a flashlight in the dark.
That is true.
People will see you long before you see them.
Very good point. So that infravision comes in handy. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. So it always does.
But Gandalf actually has been there. He tells us when he was actually there. He went there to look for Thrain, son of Thror. Yep.
Which I think is a perfect time for a sidebar on Thrain, don't you?
Let's do that. Yeah.
Yeah. We pulled some passages from various sources, from Appendix A, from The Hobbit, and from Unfinished Tales. So we're going to go ahead and cover a little bit of this situation for you here. So first off, from Appendix A, Section 3, Durin's Folk. It was therefore perhaps partly by the malice of the ring that Thrain, after some years, became restless and discontented. The lust for gold was ever in his mind. At last, when he could endure it no longer, he turned his thoughts to Erebor, and resolved to go back there. He said nothing to Thorin of what was in his heart, but with Balin and Dwalin and a few others, he arose and said farewell and departed. Little is known of what happened to him afterwards. It would now seem that as soon as he was abroad with few companions, he was hunted by the emissaries of Sauron. Wolves pursued him, orcs waylaid him, evil birds shadowed his path, and the more he strove to go north, the more misfortunes opposed him. There came a dark night when he and his companions were wandering in the land beyond Anduin, and they were driven by a black rain to take shelter under the eaves of Mirkwood. In the morning he was gone from the camp, and his companions called him in vain. They searched for him many days, until at last, giving up hope, they departed and came at length back to Thorin. Only long after was it learned that Thrain had been taken alive and brought to the pits of Dol Guldur. There he was tormented, and the ring taken from him, and there at last he died.
Well, and then we get this bit from The Hobbit, An Unexpected Party. Gandalf says,
Thrain, your father, went away on the 21st of April, 100 years ago last Thursday, and has never been seen by you since. True, true, said Thorin. Well, your father gave me this to give to you, and if I have chosen my own time and way for handing it over, you can hardly blame me, considering the trouble I had to find you. Your father could not remember his own name when he gave me the paper, and he never told me yours, so on the whole I think I ought to be praised and thanked. Here it is," said he, handing the map to Thorin. "I don't understand," said Thorin. And Bilbo felt he would have liked to say the same. The explanation did not seem to explain. "Your grandfather," said the wizard slowly and grimly, "gave the map to his son for safety before he went to the mines of Moria. Your father went away to try his luck with the map after your grandfather was killed, and lots of adventures of a most unpleasant sort he had, but he never got near the mountain. How he got there I don't know, but I found him a prisoner in the dungeons of the necromancer." "Whatever were you doing there?" asked Thorin with a shudder, and all the dwarves shivered. "Never you mind. I was finding things out as usual, and a nasty, dangerous business it was. Even I, Gandalf, only just escaped. I tried to save your father, but it was too late. He was witless and wandering, and had forgotten almost everything, except the map and the key."
Man, that's a great passage. It takes me right back to season 2, early part. Yeah, man. Well, then we've got one more section. This is from Unfinished Tales, The Quest of Erebor. And this is again Gandalf. "I remembered a dangerous journey of mine 91 years before, when I had entered Dol Guldur in disguise, and had found there an unhappy dwarf dying in the pits. I had no idea who he was. He had a map that had belonged to Durin's folk in Moria, and a key that seemed to go with it, though he was too far gone to explain it. And he said that he had possessed a great ring. Nearly all his ravings were of that. The last of the 7, he said over and over again. But all these things he might have come by in many ways. He might have been a messenger caught as he fled, or even a thief trapped by a greater thief. But he gave the map and the key to me. For my son, he said, and then he died, and soon after I escaped myself. I stowed the things away, and by some warning of my heart I kept them always with me, safe, but soon almost forgotten. I had other business in Dol Guldur more important and perilous than all the treasure of Erebor. Now I remembered it all again, and it seemed clear that I had heard the last words of Thrain II, though he did not name himself or his son. And Thorin, of course, did not know what had become of his father, nor did he ever mention the last of the 7 rings." Yeah. So there's your sidebar on Thrain and his experience in the pits of Dol Guldur.
Yeah. And I love that because it gives us not only why Gandalf went to Moria in the first place when he's talking about the experience he has of Moria, it also tells us about his experience of the pits of Dol Guldur.
Yes, it
when
does.
He says that he went to the dungeons of the Dark Lord. So we get a lot out of that sidebar. That was
we really do. A lot of history, a lot
well
of bits
chosen.
and pieces. Yeah. That's what we try to do.
So that's Gandalf's experience, but Aragorn.
Yeah.
Aragorn says he passed the Dimril Gate, so he's been to Moria too. He came out again, but it wasn't pleasant. He says the memory is very evil.
Very evil, yeah.
But he doesn't tell us what. I mean, he does. Obviously, it's something he doesn't want to think about. So the text doesn't tell us what this experience was for him. We can only speculate, and we can't even really do that. We can only guess. I mean,
that's more
wild weekend in college, maybe, or
maybe following a ranger, trying to find a ranger, or I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, I like that idea.
What would have taken him there?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe when he was hunting for Gollum.
I was thinking about that, but the timeline's wrong. Because of if he had gone into Moria during the hunt for Gollum, the orcs were already there, and he would have known that. And so he would have said, guys, we can't go there. It's loaded with orcs.
Place is littered with orcs.
It's absolutely filthy with orcs. Yeah, I think at that point we have to say, no, he must not have done it during the hunt for Gollum, or he would have more intelligence to share with the party.
Yeah.
Just because of the timing. So
there's just really not anything out there. Although there was something from Hammond and Skull, wasn't there? That I don't know how useful it's going to be, but there was something from an early draft, wasn't there?
Yeah, and the original version of Strider, back when he was still a hobbit named Trotter, he had also almost the same reaction to going into Moria. He'd said it was evil, and that it was because he'd been captured in Moria by forces of Sauron. So it seems like even from the very earliest drafts, Tolkien wanted to make sure that Moria was a very scary place and that the knowledgeable ranger, whether it be Trotter or Aragorn, knew that this is a place we really should avoid if we can at all help it.
Well, and I suppose that's really what counts, isn't it? I mean, the details of exactly what happened there are less important than the fact that we know this is just a place that even the ranger Aragorn is terrified of.
Yeah, he absolutely does not want to go back, but he'll do it.
Right.
He's already said, "I will do this." Well, he hasn't already said it at this point. He says it here shortly.
Right. Yeah. No. So let's talk about some of those reactions of the others. I mean, we get Pippin and Sam, right? In the epistemic regime, the people at the very bottom of it.
Yeah.
People who know the least. Of course, Pippin does. I don't want to go, and Sam says, "I don't want to go." Of course not. Of course you don't.
Right.
And that's exactly Gandalf's response.
Right. That's his exact thought.
You'd be nuts to want to go. But
nobody wants to.
But that's not the question. Do you want to go? The question is, if I lead you there, who's going to follow?
And that's the important part, too. I'm not sending you there on your own. I'm going with you. I'm leading you. I am the one who will help you until I slip and fall. So,
you got to bring that up again.
Every time. No, it's a health and safety problem right there. There was, they had too narrow of a bridge. They didn't have a rail. I think there's going to be a
big spill.
Yeah,
big spill right there on the bridge.
I'm surprised that Jackson didn't include the Wilhelm scream when he fell off the edge.
I'm so glad he didn't.
Can you hear Gandalf now?
I'm so glad he did. Every time I hear a Wilhelm scream, it just takes me right out.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. I was being facetious. The last
and Jackson did use a few of them in the movies.
In the Hobbit films,
where, but I think he used a couple in Lord of the Rings. Probably some of the.
Did he?
I want to say the Siege of Helm's Deep, maybe.
Oh, maybe. Boy, that if I hear that, I'm going to be very disappointed. But you're probably right.
I tune them out. Yeah. I guess they drive me nuts.
They do.
But
let's start with Gimli's response because he doesn't have a Wilhelm scream to this, but he is eager. I'll do it
eagerly. Yeah.
Yeah. He's happy.
He might be the only one who is eager to go there.
Yeah, he is, and we'll see him kind of sort of take the co-lead with Gandalf as they go. Aragorn's reaction: he'll do the same thing as Gimli. He'll go, but boy, it's not eager. It's heavy.
No. Now I think there's a really nice contrast between the fact that they both say "I will," and even the syntax of the sentence is the same. I will said subject adverb. Eagerly, heavily.
Yeah.
But the difference between those two adverbs is so telling.
Oh, it's drastic. Yeah.
And,
Aragorn is
tells
willing
you everything
to do
about
this.
Yeah.
But he's not happy to do it.
No.
And part of this seems to be because it's almost in response to what Gandalf has already done. Like, all right, well, we tried my way first, so I have to follow your lead now. It's really the only right thing for me to do. And then we get the premonition. Then we get his foresight. I'm not thinking of anybody else. I'm not even thinking about the ring. This is just you. And if you pass the doors of Moria, beware. Now, remember, the men of Numenor have foresight, don't they?
Yeah. Yeah, they do. He's got a bit of, we've seen this with like Elrond,
Yes.
And this actual foresight, actual premonition. And he's definitely seen something.
Yep.
And this is the first indication, even at this early point, that Gandalf isn't going to make it out to, to us as the reader. It's kind of the story.
It's the first bit of foreboding, isn't it? Yeah, foreshadowing. Right.
Yeah, we'll get another one a little later. I can't remember if it's in this episode or the next one, but I'll point it out when we get there.
The next one. Yeah, we'll get there soon enough. So, what about Boromir's reaction?
Boromir, I'm not going to do it unless it's 8-1 against me.
Right.
Also, let's hear from the others, Legolas and the little folk. Not that that's condescending at all. But okay,
not at all.
Let's ask Legolas and Little Folk, and I'll ask him, but I don't think he'll be very keen because that's exactly what Legolas says.
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't
know. He doesn't even say it all short, like, "Nah, I'm not interested." It's, "I do not wish to go to Moria," and he doesn't even say, "But I'll follow you anyway." It's just, that's not my desire.
Yeah.
Hobbits say nothing. Yeah.
Yeah,
the Hobbits
sort of
say nothing.
Frodo, they look to Frodo as sort of their, their leader, obviously, which he is.
Yeah, he is.
And he suggests, let's just sleep on it. Let's talk about it again in the morning. But I notice that he says Gandalf will get votes easier in the light of the morning.
Yes.
He doesn't say we'll all make the right decision in the morning. He says Gandalf will get more votes in the morning, which that tells me he's already made his decision. He knows that he's going to go.
Yeah,
he
will.
He does say, I do not wish to refuse the advice of Gandalf.
Right.
But he's saying,
That's kind of the point. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. He's already
he doesn't
made
want to
up
go
his
with the
mind.
diminished fellowship. If Boromir's not going to go unless it's 8-1, then Frodo wisely knows we need to get everybody on board.
So basically he's saying, let's delay the vote until we have more people convinced of Gandalf.
Until the circumstances are more likely to give us the outcome we want.
Right. Yeah.
It'd be like saying, let's wait to have the election until the stock market's been up straight for a month.
Right.
And, the economy's booming and unemployment is down. Then we'll have the election.
It's exactly like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It really is.
And then, well, the wind is howling.
Oh, is that the wind?
Yeah. Something else is howling.
Then it's not. That's right. It is no longer the wind. And that's where I'm going to pick up. Suddenly, Aragorn leapt to his feet. How the wind howls, he cried. It is howling with wolf voices. The wargs have come west of the mountains. Need we wait until morning, then? Said Gandalf. It is as I said. The hunt is up. Even if we live to see the dawn, who now will wish to journey south by night, with the wild wolves on his trail? How far is Moria? Asked Boromir. There is a door southwest of Caradhras, some 15 miles as the crow flies, and maybe 20 as the wolf runs, answered Gandalf grimly. Then let us start as soon as it is light tomorrow, if we can, said Boromir. The wolf that one hears is worse than the orc that one fears. True, said Aragorn, loosening his sword in its sheath. But where the warg howls, there also the orc prowls. I wish I had taken Elrond's advice, muttered Pippin to Sam. I'm no good after all. There's not enough of the breed of Bandibris the bull roarer in me. These howls freeze my blood. I don't ever remember feeling so wretched. My heart's right down in my toes, Mr. Pippin, said Sam, but we aren't eaten yet, and there's some stout folk here with us. Whatever may be in store for old Gandalf, I'll wager it isn't a wolf's belly. Yeah, he's probably right.
He is right, yeah. We know that.
Well, yeah, we know he's right, but even objectively speaking, Gandalf's probably not going to get defeated and chewed up by the wolves. That's probably not his fate.
Probably not.
So,
but let's go back to the beginning of that passage.
Yes, please.
And Aragorn, recognizing that the sound that Frodo thought was the wind howling is actually, that's not the wind. That's the wolves. Yeah, I think it's just, comes from being a ranger. He just, he made his recognize howl roll or something.
That's recognize. Well, he probably only had to roll like a 4.
Probably so. Yeah,
as long as you basically just don't roll a 1, you're good to go.
Yeah. He's got so many points in that skill. It's just.
He stacked it. I mean, it's like an automatic pass, if they're within 10 miles. So.
Yeah.
But where are they? I like what he says here. The wargs have come west of the mountains. Let's remember, in The Hobbit, we're told that wargs are evil wolves over the edge of the wild. Well, here we are. We're not over the edge of the wild.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, they must have come from over the mountains. They must have come west over the mountains if they're wargs.
And that's a reminder that the bad guys are closing in. That's a reminder that the circle of light is about to be
being surrounded.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So Gandalf. It's like, okay, nope, vote is canceled. Let's move.
We are not going to have a second resolution on this.
No. Even if we live to see the dawn.
Yeah,
that's
good. Optimistic. Even if we live to see the morning.
Yeah.
Wait a minute. What did you just say? Yeah.
I do happen to love 15 miles as the crow flies and maybe 20 as the wolf runs. There's a bit of grim, almost
very
like that
grim.
Germanic
That's gallows humor right there. Yeah.
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
And then we get, I kind of feel like this is, don't you think this is another proverb battle?
Oh, absolutely. This is a total
we got
proverb
one of these
battle.
with Elrond and Gimli last chapter.
Yeah, here we get Boromir and Aragorn, yeah.
We're not told these are proverbs, but they certainly sound like proverbs. Boromir.
Oh, they are, yeah.
Basically saying that, the present danger of real wolves is worse than the possible danger of orcs.
Right. The sure thing that's bad is always going to be worse than the less sure thing, even if that less sure thing is worse, even if the risk is higher. Like, well, orcs are 90% likely to defeat us, whereas wolves are only 50% likely. So you'd think orcs are worse.
But wolves are here.
Wolves are here and orcs are not. So the wolves, this is urgent. This is a problem right now.
Right.
And Aragorn's
And of course, Aragorn's proverb and reply is, well, they kind of go together ananyway.
They do. They're like peanut butter and chocolate, man.
Right.
They're like peaches and herbs,
If they're peaches and herbs.
Oh, man.
They're like the captain in Tennille.
That's exactly Sonny and Cher, man. This is.
Oh man.
All right.
But yeah,
I almost apologize for that. Yeah.
Nope, don't. That was brilliant.
No, I know. I like Pippin's response, by the way. It's like his first thought is the bull roar, is Bandabras took. Look, I may be descended from Bandabras, but there is not enough of his, DNA in me. I'm absolutely terrified. I'm frozen. I've never felt like this before.
Mm-hmm.
I love Sam, though. Sam's scared, too. But, man, his faith in Gandalf is unshakable, isn't it?
Yeah.
And others. I mean, there are some stout folk here with us, but
sure,
it's Gandalf that's really the key. Yeah.
Yeah, you've got a real fear and hope going on here with Pippin and Sam. Both of them are experiencing fear. But while Pippin is he's not feeling much hope right now, Sam has hope. He's got...
Yes, he does.
And he's got... It's Estelle hope, because he's got hope in something that's real. In the strength of the stout folk that are here. Yeah. And the fact that, look, Gandalf's not going to... He's not going to be killed by a wolf. Come on, that's not his fate. But I do feel like, and this is the second one that I was thinking of, I do feel like this is the second foreshadowing that something is coming for Gandalf soon.
That's true. Whatever may be in store.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Something is in store for Gandalf.
I don't think I caught that on first reading, but you're right. To me, that does say whatever may be in store, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
Right.
It's not a wolf's belly, so,
right.
It won't be this chapter, folks, but, stick around.
Yep.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Slip and fall on the bridge. Stay away from bridges without rails.
Yeah, always, especially, high ones like that. Yeah.
Yep.
I'm going to go ahead and have you pick up the next reading right there immediately after that. What do you think?
Okay.
All right.
For their defense in the night, the company climbed to the top of the small hill under which they had been sheltering. It was crowned with a knot of old and twisted trees, about which lay a broken circle of boulder stones. In the midst of this, they lit a fire, for there was no hope that darkness and silence would keep their trail from discovery by the hunting packs. Round the fire they sat, and those that were not on guard dozed uneasily. Poor Bill the pony trembled and sweated where he stood. The howling of the wolves was now all round them, sometimes nearer and sometimes further off. In the dead of night, many shining eyes were seen peering over the brow of the hill. Some advanced almost to the ring of stones. At a gap in the circle, a great dark wolf shape could be seen halted, gazing at them. A shuddering howl broke from him, as if he were a captain summoning his pack to the assault. Gandalf stood up and strode forward, holding his staff aloft.
"Listen, hound of Sauron," he cried. "Gandalf is here. Fly if you value your foul skin. I will shrivel you from tail to snout if you come within this ring."
That is a valiant stand. I like it.
Boy, isn't it? I love that. I can see him now.
You had a really cool observation about this little defense, this little fire.
Yeah.
Can you tell us about that?
The defense upon the small hill. Let's look at this phrasing again, going back to the beginning of the part you read. Crowned with a knot of old and twisted trees, about which lay a broken circle of boulder stones. I don't think this is an accident. This is a circle. And in that circle, what's done? They lit a fire.
They light a fire.
We have a literal circle of light.
Yep.
Against the darkness that is encroaching, the inevitable darkness that's encroaching. This is that Beowulf moment.
That is absolutely it. Yep.
Yeah. And in the most literal sense, like you can't miss this.
Right.
I missed it the first 37 times I read it, but yeah.
Sure, yeah.
I know. Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
Yep. Now that we've, read all that stuff and been talking about all that stuff, this is something like this really just jumps out at you.
Stands out, doesn't it? Yeah. But boy, after that fire started and they're sitting around, there's some on guard and some trying to sleep. They're out there. They're out there somewhere.
Going back to the Moody Blues, huh?
Yeah. Nice. I don't know. Tonight, I'm just feeling musical tonight. But no, you know that they are out there.
I'm reminded of the passage through Mirkwood in The Hobbit. And you remember the eyes that Bilbo and Thorin and company saw there.
Boy,
I've actually got that passage here.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, please read it.
The nights were the worst. It then became pitch dark. Not what you call pitch dark, but really pitch. So black that you really could see nothing, Bilbo tried flapping his hand in front of his nose, but he could not see it at all. Well, perhaps it is not true to say that they could see nothing. They could see eyes. They slept all closely huddled together, and took it in turns to watch. And when it was Bilbo's turn, he would see gleams in the darkness round them, and sometimes pairs of yellow or red or green eyes would stare at him from a little distance, and then slowly fade and disappear, and slowly shine out again in another place.
What he didn't realize is that when the green eyes are glowing, he's supposed to walk towards them. When they turn yellow, he's supposed to slow down and then not move when they're red.
When they're red, they're stop. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. So
there's a red thing coming.
There's a red light getting near the green light.
It's interesting. Although I thought of that passage as I'm just now reading it, I realized one big difference is that here in Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship is in a circle of light, whereas in Mirkwood, they are in pitch black.
Total darkness.
Even the party was in darkness. So that is actually
you can't even see your hand in front of you.
Yeah. So there's a difference there. But again, there's a same sense of ominousness and just this terrifying image.
The surrounding
of these eyes
evil
that you see. Yeah. You see these
eyes. And in both
them.
cases, it's animals. It's not orcs. It's not, evil humans. It's creatures. You can't even begin to rationalize with them or say anything. You can't ask for mercy. This is
right.
What's going to happen is going to happen. You're going to be attacked.
Yeah. That's right.
So then the alpha wolf stops at the edge of the circle and howls as if he were a captain summoning his pack to the assault. He is exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
Oh. But then, like you said, Gandalf's amazing response, huh?
Gandalf recognizes
who
this warg serves. And he identifies himself to, sort of to challenge this captain of the wargs. So he must think that, first of all, that this warg understands speech.
Right.
And that he would fear Gandalf.
Yeah, he would know the name and have reason to fear it. You're right.
Yeah. And, he calls him Hound of Sauron. And recall that Sauron was described as the Lord of Werewolves in the Silmarillion.
That's right.
Yeah.
The island...
Tol and Garhoth, yeah.
Tol and Garhoth, yeah.
Yep.
Well, apparently the wolf either doesn't understand speech or fear Gandalf, quite possibly both, and leaps forward only to, let's just say his leap doesn't last very long.
No.
Legolas thwack.
He doesn't exactly stick the landing.
No, he doesn't. He sticks all right. It's the arrow that sticks him.
There's something sticking out of him.
Yeah, but it's not the landing. Obviously, Legolas, an incredible archer, as we'll see later. I love that moment when he hits quite possibly the winged steed of the Nazgul later on over the Anduin. But here, he gets this dead wolf with an elvish arrow in the throat. But it reminded me, just as earlier you were reminded of a passage in The Hobbit, this reminded me of a section from the Lay of the Children of Hurin, talking about Beleg, and a similar moment with wolves and skill with the bow. And I'm going to read from that for a little bit because, any excuse to read alliterative verse. Then Dylir he drew his dart, beloved. How so far fared it or fell unnoted? Unsought he found it with sound feathers and barbs unbroken till it broke at last. And fleet bade he fly that feather-pinioned, snake-tongued shaft as he snicked the string, the notch nimbly and with naked arm to his ear drew it. The air whistled, and the tingling string twanged behind it. Soundless a sentinel sank before it. There was one of the wolves that awakened no more. Now arrows after he aimed swiftly, that missed not their mark and meted silent death in the darkness, dreadly stinging, till 3 of the wolves with throats pierced, and 4 had fallen with fleet-winged arrows a-quivering in their quenched eyes. 3 of them right through the throat. Yeah.
That's such a great passage. I love that you brought that in.
That.
Any excuse to read some alliterative verse, right?
Always. And always. I'll find any reason I can.
There's some cool stuff in that. Not that we're going to spend a lot of time talking about it, but I noticed that word dreadly. Remember, there's that word dreadly that appears in Mythopoeia.
Yes.
And, it appears here too. It's a cool word, dreadly.
It really is. It's not something that you see in normal usage, that's for sure.
Yeah. That's a great moment. And speaking of alliteration, there actually is a lot of it in the paragraphs that describe the actual warg attack.
Yeah.
I want to talk about this, but I want to give you a chance to read it first. And then maybe we can talk about some of it that, but I will say that we've talked before. Let's see, I think it was our Patreon special in Q1 of last year when we talked about how Tolkien uses very musical language to sort of heighten the drama and draw your attention to these passages of intense action. And there is a lot of that here in this passage that you're about to read.
All right, then, I'll go ahead and pick up. The night was old, and westward the waning moon was setting, gleaming fitfully through the breaking clouds. Suddenly Frodo started from sleep. Without warning, a storm of howls broke out fierce and wild all about the camp. A great host of wargs had gathered silently, and was now attacking them from every side at once. "Fling fuel on the fire," cried Gandalf to the hobbits. "Draw your blades, and stand back to back." In the leaping light, as the fresh wood blazed up, Frodo saw many gray shapes spring over the ring of stones. More and more followed. Through the throat of one huge leader, Aragorn passed his sword with a thrust. With a great sweep, Boromir hewed the head off another. Beside them, Gimli stood with his stout legs apart, wielding his dwarf axe. The bow of Legolas was singing. In the wavering firelight, Gandalf seemed suddenly to grow. He rose up, a great menacing shape like the monument of some ancient king of stone set upon a hill. Stooping like a cloud, he lifted a burning branch and strode to meet the wolves. They gave back before him. High in the air he tossed the blazing brand. It flared with a sudden white radiance like lightning, and his voice rolled like thunder. "Nar edraith amen, nar danin garhoth," he cried. There was a roar and a crackle, and the tree above him burst into a leaf and bloom of blinding flame. The fire leapt from treetop to treetop. The whole hill was crowned with dazzling light. The swords and knives of the defenders shone and flickered. The last arrow of Legolas kindled in the air as it flew and plunged burning into the heart of a great wolf chieftain. All the others fled.
Wow.
There you go.
Over very quickly. But again,
boy, there's so much.
Just the sound, the musicality of the language really, it almost plays in slow motion. It does. Because it really draws your attention to it. And I want to talk about some of the sort of the musical or the sort of the sonic qualities of some of the language he uses here.
Yeah, let's do that.
There's alliteration in it from beginning to end. It would take too long to list out every instance of alliteration here.
Some of them were pretty obvious, though.
But from the very beginning, westward the waning moon.
There you go. That's another good one. But I was thinking through the throat, past his sword with a thrust. I mean, that's a great.
Yeah.
Stood with his stout legs. There's so many of these.
Stout legs. Hewed the head, seemed suddenly, all the way through to the last arrow of Legolas.
Yeah, indeed. And I love the one that's leaf and bloom of blinding flame.
That's a
There's
great
something,
one.
even though we get the L and the F in leaf, but they still fit with flame somehow. And then, of course, the bloom and blinding. That just
that's a really
good
one.
It's vision too.
It's really rhythmic, and it is also a really powerful visual image too.
Yeah.
We get not just alliteration though. There's a lot of assonance and rhyme. Remember, rhyme is when the ending of the words rhyme. Assonance is when you sort of have a rhyme in the middle of a word, like white, like lightning. White and light. White like lightning. Yeah. That's an assonance. And then there's some just straightforward rhyme like spring over the ring.
Yeah.
There's a couple of really prominent repetitions of words with a sort of a rhythmic sense to it, like more and more or treetop to treetop, which I thought you delivered really well.
Thank you.
And there's even some actual onomatopoeia, like a roar and a crackle.
Yeah.
And there's also a handful of just sort of sound words, not really alliteration or assonance or any particular device, but just sort of descriptions of the sounds. Gandalf's voice rolled like thunder. Legolas's bow was singing.
I love that one. Yeah.
All of this in just this one. How many paragraphs? We're looking at, 5, 6 paragraphs?
Well, yeah. 5, not counting the single line paragraph of Gandalf's Cinder and Cry.
Yeah. So just a really short paragraph, a really short battle scene. But again, the drama is heightened by the language Tolkien uses. He's such a master of this stuff.
Very much so. He really is. Yeah, that is a potent set of images right there. And again, this is another example of how if you don't read it out loud, you will miss some of these things, I think.
Yeah. In fact, I even though I had a list of these alliterations and these different sounds from reading it, I didn't pick up on Westward the Waning Moon until I just now heard you read it.
Yeah.
So, well, let's go back to the beginning. Now that we've talked about the sounds of the passage, why don't we go back and we'll talk about the, what actually happened.
Okay, so we've got the moon is nearly setting. Morning is just on the horizon, almost literally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we see all of this from Frodo's perspective, right? He's started from sleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is from his direction, from his perspective. The howls break out. Company's surrounded. Gandalf issues very brief, very specific instructions. Right, get the fire going because we're going to need fire. Get your swords and stand back to back. Good fellowship right there, huh?
Yeah. The trust and the camaraderie that they've built up over the past few weeks. Was it 2 weeks? We said it was been like about 2 weeks.
14 days when they got to Holland. So this is another when they first got to Holland. So this is probably a couple days later than that. 17 days in.
Yeah. So they've built up some camaraderie in that time, and that's really going to serve them well here. They're ready to stand, back to back as fellows.
Oh, then the action starts with many gray shapes coming.
Oh.
And they just keep coming, right? I mean, many gray shapes spring, and then more and more followed. This is a big attack. There are a lot of them. And so we start with the actions of the warriors. And again, never mind all the alliteration and things that we pointed out, just looking at the actions of Aragorn, right? We get Aragorn using his sword to thrust through the throat of one of the leaders. We get Boromir, hacking off the head of one of them. Gimli wielding his axe. Legolas doing exactly what he does best, using his bow. It's just a great set of descriptive actions of the warriors of the group.
Yeah, just the heroism. These guys just jumping into action.
But they're a league behind somebody else, aren't they?
Then we get Gandalf. And he does the Gandalf thing where he seems suddenly to grow. And he,
menacing shape.
We've seen this before. And we see him like the monument of some ancient king of stone. Oh, that's so great. And he does the other Gandalf thing. He brings fire.
Yes, he does.
He casts this casts a spell, issues this word of command, which I'm not going to read the whole thing because you already did, and I don't want to have to do it.
Well, I'll leave the old Gothic to you, and you let me take the Sindarin sometime.
I will in parts, because the first sentence, Naur and Edraith Amen, we actually saw that back when he started the fire on Caradhras. That's actually the same incantation he used there.
Exact
it means,
phrase, right?
Fire save us, or literally fire be for the saving of us, which is a little awkward.
Right.
So fire save us. Let's just translate
just
it
a
that
touch,
way.
Yeah.
Now, the second sentence of that, which we haven't seen before because it wasn't applicable then, is Naur Daning Narhoth. And that means fire drive back the werewolves.
Yeah.
Now, obviously that word Naur is fire. I want to say a little bit about this word Ngaurhoth, which is werewolf. Ngaur?
Boy, that's a hard thing to say, isn't it?
It's a tough one to say.
Ngaur
with an N at the beginning, or just Gaur with a G at the beginning, is werewolf. It literally, according to words, phrases, and passages in Lord of the Rings, that's Parma Eldalambron, issue number 17, it literally means false, disguised, or deformed. So we're going to talk about that again in a few minutes. But it is the word for werewolf.
Yeah.
Hoth is a suffix in Sindarin that means a horde or host. It's almost always in the sense of an evil horde of something. The one place where I can always remember it is Glamhoth. That's what the orcs are called in places like the Lay of the Children of Hurin. They're called the Glamhoth, which means the din horde. So that's what that Ngarhoth means. And remember that after Sauron, as we were just talking about, after Sauron captured Tol Sirion in the First Age, it became known as Tol Ngarhoth, the Isle of Werewolves. So that is the same Sindarin word that's here in Gandalf's incantation.
Yeah, it is. I wanted to observe how much more powerful Gandalf is here than in the very similar attack in The Hobbit. You remember when they were up the trees?
And he's just kind of chucking the flaming pine cones.
This is much more serious. This is like, I'm walking out here, come and get me, come at me, bro. He's got, the burning branch, and he's talking it up, and he's talking smack to the wolves. He throws it up in the air, and it flares with white radiance. This is a radically different, much stronger image of Gandalf than we got in the Hobbit.
That's true.
Just want to point that out.
That's true. Is it because he's more openly declaring his power to challenge Sauron?
That's the only thing I can think of. I mean, he does always seem to do just the bare minimum, right? I mean, we observed that earlier on the mountain. Okay, fine. Here's a little Miravor. I don't want you to die on me.
Right.
But, I'm not going to make it any better for you. And it's the same, in The Hobbit. He just kind of did what needed to be done, but
yeah,
I don't know.
Well, and at the time, those were wargs, so those were the same or similar creatures,
and goblins were with them.
Yeah, but it was just sort of a random attack by evil creatures. It wasn't this.
It wasn't tied
focused
to the ring.
Attack on the ring bearer.
Mm-hmm.
Which, although I don't know, do we know for sure that this is? I mean, do we know that the wargs know?
No, I don't know. I don't know that we do.
I mean, obviously,
I don't know. I think
Gandalf
we do.
knows
I think
that they're
we know
wolves
that
of
Caradhras
Sauron.
attacked them. We know that the Crebine, made somebody aware of their presence.
Yeah.
Whether it's Sauron or Saruman.
Yeah.
Yeah, the wolves have got to be related to that.
Yeah. And so Gandalf just knows the stakes are higher. It's time to bring out the big guns.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Step it up.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I like at the very end of this stuff that we're not reading, we get the bit from Sam. What did I tell you? Wolves won't get him. That was an eye-opener.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved wolves won't get him. It's just this reminder that his faith in Gandalf was not misplaced.
Yep. Quite true. That's a very good point. Yep.
Wanted to touch on that because you're going to read the next little bit that actually takes us through the end of our reading for tonight.
That's right. And this is the part where they gather up all the bodies and bury them or burn them or do something with them,
yeah.
right? Yeah.
That's the intention. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, let's see what actually happens.
Right.
When the full light of the morning came, no signs of the wolves were to be found, and they looked in vain for the bodies of the dead. No trace of the fight remained, but the charred trees and the arrows of Legolas lying on the hilltop. All were undamaged, save one of which only the point was left.
"It is as I feared," said Gandalf. "These were no ordinary wolves hunting for food in the wilderness. Let us eat quickly and go."
Yeah, that's a good idea.
So yeah, that's a thing. That's a weird thing, right?
That is. And that is a thing. Can't we go and just eat while we're going? Why do we have to sit down and eat before we go? There are wolves around. I mean, can't we just stop at a drive-thru someplace? Get a breakfast burrito or, I guess a suckfast burrito or a brupper burrito?
Yeah, no. Let's forget one of those.
No.
Let's not have one of those.
Let's forget both of those, frankly. Though I do like the alliteration of brupper burrito.
A brupper burrito? Yeah, that would be good. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, seriously, let's eat now. Let's just sit here and eat a meal and then get going. I mean,
because
of course they have to do that because they have to get their stuff out and prepare the meal. And, I was teasing about eating on the go, but still.
But because, guys, we have to get out of here because there's no bodies.
Yeah, that's kind of the creepy part.
There's dead bodies
here.
How many wolves did we kill last night, and where are they all?
I distinctly remember chopping the heads off at least 3. I mean, come on. What is going on? Well, what is happening here? Well, we are told they're wargs, right?
Yeah, and Gandalf observes, as I thought, these weren't ordinary wolves, which I guess I thought he figured before when he called them Hound of Sauron, right? But
yeah, it is as I feared.
I guess he was just saying that, just in case. But, that suspicion is confirmed now in the morning.
Yeah, that's definitely confirmed.
Yeah, so what exactly are these? I mean, bodies gone, arrows just lying on the ground. And yes, the text does describe them as wargs.
Yeah, repeatedly. And we've mentioned letter number 297 before. That's where I want to go for a little bit of the start of an answer here. Tolkien there says that the word warg is used in The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings for an evil breed of demonic wolves.
Mm-hmm.
Touched on this a few times, haven't we?
We have touched on it a few times. I feel like every season, actually, so far.
Yeah,
maybe not season 3.
So.
But now I'm kind of beginning to question our old Venn diagram from season 1 a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Because, before we had said that wargs were just a subset of regular wolves. But now we're faced with creatures that the text calls wargs, but that Gandalf refers to as something else as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I do think wargs are still a subset of regular wolves. The problem was that some wargs are also something else, apparently, because Gandalf calls one a Hound of Sauron. Now, like we talked about, Sauron was the Lord of Werewolves.
Right.
And then we get the second line in Sindarin, which means fire drive back the, hold on to your hats, folks, werewolves. What? So these are both wargs and werewolves? Maybe. I mean, but what's a werewolf in Tolkien? Because we need to make sure we're not talking about Michael J. Fox, getting a hairy back.
He was a heck of a basketball player, though. You got to give him that.
He was. Oh, yeah, man. Just mad hops, no doubt. In the Silmarillion, in the chapter of Beren and Luthien, We're told that the werewolves are, quote, fell beasts inhabited by dreadful spirits that Sauron had imprisoned in their bodies. Ooh.
Mm-hmm. So we'd have to conclude that werewolves are a specific set of wargs. I mean, so they're these fell beasts, right?
Because those are fell beasts, right? Yeah.
That have been inhabited by spirits that basically Sauron can imprison spirits in their bodies.
Right.
And I think we did talk about some of that before.
Right.
But again, it's just this idea that, I don't know, I'm struggling with this a little bit, Alan, because I think we did talk about the dreadful spirits being imprisoned in their bodies before, didn't we?
We did, but I don't think I was looking at the Venn diagram, and we had the werewolves as being something separate, as though they were fell beasts, maybe that were different from wargs or wolves. But this makes me see that there may be a smaller subset of wargs, right? If wargs are a circle fully contained within the circle of wolves, right? You got a big circle that says wolves, you got a little circle that says wargs, because wargs are wolves that are evil and live on the other side of the wild.
Mm-hmm.
But now we've got a subset of wargs that are
also
they're
werewolves.
more than just wolves. They're wolves that are inhabited by spirits, and that makes them werewolves. Yeah.
But are all werewolves wargs now?
Only the ones we see here. I mean, clearly these are. Well, maybe I shouldn't say clearly, but I think these are wargs that are also werewolves. Are all werewolves also wargs? I don't know. Could that circle extend beyond the circle of?
Because what I've got here is to say that werewolves are a specific set of wargs, which implies that all werewolves are wargs. And I don't know if they are.
Oh, yeah. And there's an intersection at least.
Yeah.
So maybe they're not a very specific subset.
Yeah, I mean, that is actually, that's really fascinating. And I mean, again, it kind of helps us understand why their Sindarin name is a word that means false or disguised or deformed.
Yeah.
Because
I agree.
They are, what makes them werewolves is this idea that they've got these spirits.
Mm-hmm. And it may be
imprisoned
that those spirits.
In mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm thinking it may be those imprisoned spirits that when you kill the body they're in, I don't know. I still don't quite get the disappearance.
How they disappear. I don't know. Yeah. It's just because they're supernatural.
Yeah.
They just pass into the Force like Obi-Wan, Their body isn't there.
Oh, I love it. Absolutely.
Except I don't want to go where they're going.
No, I don't either.
Yeah.
I don't either. But man.
Either way, it's creepy stuff. And
it is creepy, and I wish there was more on it. That's the thing. I did a ton of research trying to find answers here, and there just aren't any to be had.
It's way creepier than Michael J. Fox shooting hoops, man.
Oh, it's
Duncan.
Yeah. Though, that really is pretty creepy to begin with, though.
I don't know, man. I love that movie.
Say it's a low bar, but
I do love that movie.
Right.
Or I did. I haven't seen it in like 30 years, but
30 years,
I did
maybe
love it
more.
once.
Yeah. All right. Well, folks, that might wrap up our reading for tonight, but we are far from finished. We've got Bartleman's Bag coming your way in just a minute, and even when that's done, the talk continues all night long at the Prancing Pony.
That's right. We've always got lots of discussion happening in our social media spaces. At our common room on Facebook, you'll find comments, questions, corrections, and more on every episode, as well as updates from us throughout the week. Just look for the Prancing Pony Podcast on Facebook and click the like and follow buttons.
And now we have another common room on Reddit. You can find great discussions there at r/PrancingPonyPod. And as always, you can find us on Twitter and on Instagram with the handle @PrancingPonyPod. And follow us wherever you might be. If you like us, share us, please, on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, anywhere you happen to find Tolkien fans.
And if you really want to let the world know your feelings about us, give us a review on iTunes. The more reviews we have, the more visible our podcast is. That helps others find us and this great community of Tolkien fans we built together.
Finally, if you'd like access to exclusive content like postscripts, quarterly specials, PPP swag, or more, check out patreon.com/prancingponypod to find out how you can join the fellowship of the podcast.
We're well past our most recent goal of setting up a monthly Discord hangout, which we just did earlier tonight. And you can join the next one if you're a Patreon supporter at the Gift of Gondor tier or higher. And we're also making great progress on our way to our next big goal of doing 2 moots every year, because we do have a whole lot of fun at them.
Boy, we sure do. But we can't get there without your help. And we've got a lot of cool bonus content and gifts to make it worth your while, including a chance to join our Discord server where you'll get a chance to hang out with us once a month and even listen in live once a month while we record a podcast episode.
That's right. So if you're interested in joining, and you really want to see what goes on that Discord server, because trust me, folks, you really do.
Oh, you do. It's pretty darn funny. Yeah. Yeah.
Or if you'd just like to see how we're doing on those goals, visit patreon.com/prancingponypod.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think it's time to see what old Bartleman has in the mailbag for us tonight. Sean, what do we have?
Okay. First up, Shai in Israel wrote to us late last year with a question about Gandalf's equipment sheet. He said, I bought my 5-year-old son a toy sword and toy staff because he likes Gandalf so much. Maybe because of his dad. Excellent parenting, Shai. Well done.
Yeah, good job.
On behalf of geek dads everywhere, thank you.
Uh-huh.
But then Shai says he asked me a very difficult question. In which hand should he hold the sword? And in which hand should he hold the staff?
Oh.
Is Gandalf left or right-handed? And if Gandalf is a wizard, does he hold his staff in his dominant hand as his main tool or weapon, like an arcane focus? He says, I know that he's not that kind of wizard, but he still did magic. Which is fair. I can't argue with that.
Yeah, sure.
And then Shai says, or does he hold the sword in his dominant hand to get maximum force and precision from the sword during fights?
Well, the good news is there is an answer in the book, isn't there? I mean, at least a partial one.
There certainly is, and by that I know you read ahead too. Later in this chapter, when the Fellowship are in Moria, we get this passage. Gandalf walked in front as before. In his left hand he held up his glimmering staff, the light of which just showed the ground before his feet. In his right he held his sword Glomdring.
There you go.
So there you go. There's a clear answer on which item goes in which hand. Staff in the left, sword in the right. But does that mean Gandalf is right-handed? Or is he a southpaw holding the staff in his dominant hand? Now, I have to speculate on this, but I'm going to go out there and say he's right-handed.
Yeah.
Because in this instance, the sword is his weapon. The staff is just a light source. And in that instance, it's much more important for him to be able to wield the sword accurately than the staff, which is basically a flashlight at this point.
Right.
Now, maybe if he were actively using his Magia, maybe we'd see something different. But I still kind of doubt it. I mean, I do believe that the Astari's staves are important items, and I do think that they're important to their ability to use their Magia, and I'm really looking forward to discussing that probably later when we meet Saruman. But I don't think that they're weapons that need to be aimed with accuracy, even when they're casting a spell, right? Don't you think?
I would agree. I mean, I even think back to just something we just read here in this part of the chapter. Just a few moments ago, we saw Gandalf become a menacing shape with wargs giving back before him. All the text describes him as holding at that point is a stick, not his staff, just a burning branch. So, I mean, his staff might have been attached to his backpack or whatever. I mean, I don't think he just left it lying on the ground.
Right.
But it doesn't seem that he needs the staff in his hands, literally, in order to use his Magia.
It's not like he has to point it like it's a Harry Potter wand or something like that. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So there you go, Shai. Staff in the left, sword in the right, and we think that means Gandalf is right-handed.
There you go.
So moving on, while we're on the topic of the old Grey Pilgrim, Georgia L. wrote to us on Facebook with this observation. Georgia said, I was re-listening to some older episodes recently, and in one of the Barlaman's Bag segments, there was a question about the Astari. You read a small section from Unfinished Tales describing how Olorin was unwilling to go to Middle-earth for fear of Sauron and because he felt himself too weak. I wondered what you guys thought of the parallel between Gandalf here and Frodo in The Shadow of the Past or the Council of Elrond, where Frodo felt himself too small and weak and afraid to take the ring. Georgia says, I wonder if Gandalf ever saw this parallel himself and was more committed to helping Frodo because of it. Just a thought that popped into my head, but wondered what you guys thought.
Now, I have to admit, I'm not sure which episode she's referring to, but I do know the passage of Unfinished Tales that she's talking about. It's in the section, the Astari, of course, and I happen to have it up right here. Then Manwë asked, where was Olorin? And Olorin, who was clad in gray and having just entered from a journey, had seated himself at the edge of the council, asked what Manwë would have of him. Manwë replied that he wished Olorin to go as the third messenger to Middle-earth, and it is remarked in parentheses that Olorin was a lover of the Eldar that remained, apparently to explain Manwë's choice. But Olorin declared that he was too weak for such a task, and that he feared Sauron. Then Manwë said that that was all the more reason why he should go, and that he commanded Olorin, illegible words follow that seem to contain the word third. But at that Varda looked up and said, not as the third, and Kurumo remembered it. In that case, Kurmo ends up being Saruman.
Yeah. Now, already I can hear echoes of the conversation between Frodo and Gandalf in Shadow of the Past.
Yeah, which I already have here as well, by the way.
Oh, good.
Because that's the kind of guy I am.
Of course.
Yeah. I do really wish to destroy it, cried Frodo. Or, well, to have it destroyed. I am not made for perilous quests. I wish I had never seen the ring. Why did it come to me? Why was I chosen? Such questions cannot be answered, said Gandalf. You may be sure that it was not for any merit that others do not possess, not for power or wisdom at any rate, but you have been chosen, and you must therefore use such strength and heart and wits as you have. But I have so little of any of these things. You are wise and powerful. Will you not take the ring? No, cried Gandalf, springing to his feet. With that power I should have power too great and terrible, and over me the ring would gain a power still greater and more deadly. His eyes flashed, and his face was lit as by a fire within. Do not tempt me, for I do not wish to become like the Dark Lord himself. Yet the way of the ring to my heart is by pity for weakness, and the desire of strength to do good. Do not tempt me. I dare not take it, not even to keep it safe, unused. The wish to wield it would be too great for my strength. I shall have such need of it. Great perils lie before me. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, very similar. You're right.
Yeah. And in that passage, you can actually hear not only Frodo's fear, which echoes Gandalf's or Olorin's from the Unfinished Tales passage, but you can also hear Gandalf's own fear here and now.
Yeah.
You know, he still has fear. And Gandalf and Frodo are really, I think they're really more alike than we realized. You know, back when we talked about this chapter, I don't think we really picked up on just how similar those two are. Gandalf might be greater and stronger and wiser, but he really is more like Frodo than he is unlike him here.
Yeah, I agree. So the question then is Gandalf aware of that? Does he recognize that similarity in Frodo? I think he does. It certainly seems intentional on Tolkien's part. It's that quality of nolo hero tsari, I do not wish to be a hero, that Tolkien calls a good start for a hero. And it may be that Gandalf and Frodo, maybe even all hobbits to a degree, have that characteristic. And that's what makes them heroes in Tolkien's world. You know, it could also be that Gandalf sees those qualities in hobbits, that humility, that lack of ambition in a good way, and that's why he loves them so much.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. Yeah. So, once again, I think we find ourselves agreeing. Sorry, folks.
Yeah, it's going to happen.
It keeps happening. Well, finally, I think we still have time for this one, don't we?
I think we do, yeah.
All right. Paul Day in Bristol, UK, wrote to us saying, you guys tease each other regarding your amendments or each other's brilliant observations when you hit in the gold. But I was wondering what you both think are the most important or interesting observations or comments that the other has made.
Oh.
You mean we have to praise each other? Ugh.
Publicly?
I know. That's embarrassing.
Well, the most important observation you ever made, Sean, was saying, yes, this is a good idea to do a podcast.
I think so.
That was
a very important comment that I made, yeah. Yeah, no, so Paul says, how about if you name one in the gold moment for each other, and then name one of your own moments?
Oh, man, that's going to be interesting.
So thanks a lot for this, Paul. I mean, the truth is we have so much fun mocking each other's mistakes, and now Paul wants us to say something nice about each other. I guess we will. No.
All right, fine.
No, come on, folks. We would not keep doing this podcast if we didn't have the utmost respect for each other and truly just like each other as friends. So, so we were happy to do this, but Alan, I'm going to make you go first.
How did I know that was coming, man? Oh, he's setting me up. He's being all nice. When's the hammer falling?
I'm just ready to bask in the glow of your positive comments.
All right. Well, there were several for me to choose from.
Oh, thank you.
Dozens.
Thank you.
But I'd have to say one that I really thought you struck in the gold. And again, I think a lot of it is because this was an unexpected moment. Was a moment back in Shadow of the Past, I think, when you observed the difference between Frodo and Gandalf's viewpoint about Gollum deserving death. Frodo, and I think most of us, see it as this earned punishment, you know, that he deserves to die. He ought to be killed for the things that he's done. But you pointed out that Gandalf seems to say it almost as a relief, a reminder that Gollum is a mortal creature and as such deserves to receive his destiny, to receive death, the gift to mortal men. It was such a drastically different viewpoint from anything I'd heard before that it blew me away. And I really, to this day, find that to be just one of those moments that stunning, really insightful, and changed the way I viewed that passage. Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you. And please go on, please.
You're very welcome. Yeah. Well, as many of those things as I have for you, I was told that I needed to come up with one for me. I'm going to say I'm really proud of a very early moment. There's very little, I know I bash on our season 1 all the time, despite people saying how great season 1 is. And again, I'll concur. The content was great. It just took us a little while to get our chemistry. Sound wasn't as up to par, all that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Content's solid, yeah.
Content was solid. And here's an example of that. Spabimmy.
Yeah.
The fact that we sat down and we talked about these things and kind of built this structure and this concept that has now become a thing for us through now 4 seasons and will for the rest of the show be this shorthand version of referring to the idea that Iluvatar is sovereign and works all things to the plan that he's got. That was one I felt like I did really, I actually, blind squirrel finds a nut. So I really like that.
It's more than that. It's more than that, man. No.
Well, fair enough. Thank you, sir.
That's a really good one. In fact, that one almost was my number 1, but I had a feeling you might say it, or maybe it was just going to be too obvious because we had not stopped talking about Spabimmy. And yeah, it was totally your idea or your observation, that this is such a thing in Tolkien's world. So I did almost name that one, but I ended up going with another one that you came up with early on because I think about this one all the time, which is Morgoth's sins, and the fact that Morgoth's sins are really like they're like the template for evil in Middle Earth,
aren't they?
I think of it all the time, and I believe that the way you listed them was pride, desire to possess and dominate, impatience, self-isolation. I think there were some kind of like sub bullets in there too, like self-deception and envy, and these are truly the template for evil in Middle Earth. When you look at,
aren't they?
When you look at characters like Saruman or Sauron, I mean, pride, desire to possess and dominate. That's kind of
to a T.
Yeah, exactly. Impatience, impatience. You see that with Sauron. Striking too soon, starting the war too soon. Self-isolation, we see that all the time with Tolkien's villains. So I that was one that I don't think either of us expected that was going to be something that we kept on talking about. And again, you picked up on that back in, I think that was episode 5. It was Ainulindale.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. We'd done the Mythopoeia
and on fairy stories in the previous ones. And then we did those couple of
ill-advised solo episodes.
Which were fun, but not obviously this banter, this chemistry is lacking.
No, I think we learned eventually, very quickly, I should say.
That's what works. That's what makes the show
style
work.
of the show is going to be the 2 of us. Exactly.
So
that was in episode 5, Ainulindale, along with Spabimmy, actually. Both of those came from that episode.
Yeah. So those were.
Guess I hit my peak early.
Well, so I thought you might start thinking that, and I don't want people to get that impression because I will say, I know I'm cheating a little bit because I've got 2 on my list for you.
No.
Because just a few episodes ago, you picked up on the similarity between Boromir and Bertnoth. And I think we both came up with Turin, because I had Turin in my notes, like, this, and folks, this is when Boromir blows his horn, right? When they leave Rivendell.
Right.
And we talked about how this was kind of a proud and
open
foolish and chivalrous, but kind of a stupid thing to do. And
ill-advised.
Yeah. Yes. And we both picked up on the similarity to Turin, but then you also brought out Bertnoth, which of course, like now in hindsight, it's like, obviously. But man, that was brilliant because that opens the door to all kinds of great insights in Tolkien's Overmode essay, which applied directly to Boromir. So
they do.
So that was great stuff.
All right, on.
Really great stuff. So
well, thank you, sir.
You're still getting them right every now and then.
I'm glad.
Don't
to
sell
hear
yourself
that.
short.
Twice a day, man. Broken clock's right twice a day. All right. Tell me what your favorite you moment is, man. I got to hear this.
I like analyzing the poems. I really enjoyed digging into the poems, and so I'm really proud of some of the stuff I've come up with in that. Most recently,
your stuff on the Eärendil poem.
That's kind of what I was thinking of when I picked up on the back and forth structure of Bilbo's Song of Eärendil back in many meeters. That's when I feel like I kind of hit in the gold pretty well.
Yeah,
that was something that when I realized it as I was reading, after I realized it, I was kind of like, wow, that's cool. I came up with that. That's great. It's like I was pretty impressed that I spotted it. So
yeah. Well, you cheated, so I'm going to cheat a little bit too. I'll say the other one that almost made the cut for me was your really, I thought, very insightful discussion about Beowulf when we started season 3.
Oh.
I thought that really set the tone for how we incorporate that work and understand it in light of the Lord of the Rings. So
cool.
That was another really crucial moment. I thought you hit it. So
thank you.
There you go. So I can cheat too, man.
Yeah,
right.
When we're praising each other, we can cheat a little bit.
It's hard though. After so many episodes, it was hard to specifically identify. Like I had a few moments, but I couldn't remember enough of the details. Like, there was this one time when he sort of, I can't grasp that enough. It's like mist in my hands. I can't grab it because there's so many episodes and they all get tangled together after this much time.
Yeah. I kind of had the same problem, but as soon as I started going back farther, and I was like, man, maybe I shouldn't go back too far because that's going to make it sound like too early. But
well, you were good back then in episode 5.
And what happened to you,
episodes
man?
later,
but no, that was a lot of fun. Paul, thank you for the opportunity to do that and say something nice about each other for a change.
Yeah,
I'm going to go the opposite way, and I'm going to ask.
Oh no!
How about if we point out one just like absolute fail by our co-host?
Oh! I know
that we find
going.
Incredibly amusing. And
I'm
willing to put myself on the line too. All right.
Oh yeah.
But I don't mind going first.
I'm going to write this down. I'm going to write it down to see if I was right. All right. I've written it down. I'll turn around and show you this piece of paper. Go ahead. Okay.
That time you said that Bard couldn't possibly literally understand Thrush language because language ability is not inherited. And but there's some nuance here because yes, you are right scientifically. There's tons of research that says that language ability is not inherited. But in Tolkien's world, this is something that happens, and it's what's happening.
Apparently it is.
And it's actually something that in hindsight I realized not only does it happen, it's like kind of key to some of Tolkien's stories. Like when you look at things like The Lost Road and the Notion Club papers, like that's what they're about. So
that's like the central piece. Right. And here I am just going, well, this isn't
right. Exactly. But again, in your defense, I didn't spot it when you said it. I was kind of like, I guess that makes sense. So
well, that happened to me too with your biggest mistake. I just kind of like, okay.
I think I know what this one is too.
You probably do. Well, first I got to say that, it was hard to pick one out, not because you didn't have any goofs, but because none of them were on the scale of things like Danny Quettle or some of the other goofs that I've made, which I thought might be where you were going. But the time that you talked about the Nazgul holding their own rings, I totally missed it. I must have been like, I don't know, browsing the internet or
probably
something when you
preparing for a future reading because you didn't call me on it. And
probably,
man, was I wrong about that.
Oh, you were so wrong.
And it still keeps coming up.
I know. It's one of those things where I feel almost like, can we re-edit that and just remove that from the episode and republish that show?
And it came up again in Questions After Nightfall just back in December.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I know. Oh man.
Yeah, that was a pretty big fail. But that's the thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, we respect each other so much that when we fail big, we don't even really catch the other one failing because
because we just assume the other one is right.
He must be right. He knows what he's talking about.
Or at least mostly right.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. He's a Tolkien expert. I'll let him talk.
Expert.
All right.
That terrifying word, expert.
He said expert.
Nope.
Oh, well, now that we have torn each other down to build ourselves back up, or actually, in this case, we built ourselves up just to tear us down.
There you
go. That wraps it up for another episode of the Prancing Pony Podcast. But we'd like to invite you to come back to us next week when we will be saying goodbye to Bill.
Alas, Bill, we hardly knew ye.
Indeed. As always, folks, though, we want to thank each of you for listening. But we also want to give a very special thank you to our patrons at the Caradhras contribution tier. There are a couple of new additions this time. DeMay in Alaska, James in Virginia, Tamsin in Minnesota, Emily in Texas, Chad in Texas, Lance in New Jersey, Paul in Colorado, Jerry in Texas, Bruce in California, Mario in Utah, Seth in Texas, and Ella in California. Thank you all so very much.
Wow, that list has gotten a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much.
Yes, it has.
And folks, make sure you don't miss a single episode of the Prancing Pony Podcast. Subscribe to the show through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app.
That's right. And one last thing, as always, don't forget to send your questions, comments, and most of all, your Hounds of Sauron to Barliman at theprancingponypodcast.com.
Do we want
Keep
those?
them in their kennels,
I don't know
please.
if we want those.
Only in the kennels. I don't know. It'd be interesting. It'd be like, like what was the dog, the Hellhound in Good Omens?
Yeah.
All
Well,
right.
Barliman's not always punctual with the mail, but we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
No.
And your question or comment may be featured on an upcoming show.
Well, folks, this has been far too short a time to spend among such excellent and admirable listeners. But until next time.
Farewell, friends.